Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we take that daunting stack of sources, research, and cultural data, and we distill it all into powerful, focused, actionable insights. Basically, we give you the competitive edge in navigating modern life. And welcome background to English Flow Zone. Today, that means we are diving, headfirst into the chaotic, high-speed, and, surprisingly emotionally literate world of modern dating and communication in 2026.
It's such a critical area to analyze right now. The entire manual for how to approach romance has basically been torn up and rewritten. If you're dating in this era, you're synthesizing everything. You've got like ancient human drives, classic romantic literature, and this hyper-modern digital shorthand all at once.
All while trying not to get completely burned out.
Exactly. Emotional burnout is the real danger.
Right. So our mission today is to really master this profound cultural shift. We're moving away from what our sources kept calling the World Series of Poker mentality. That old playbook of keeping your cards close, playing hard to get.
Waiting for the other person to make the first move.
Yes, all of that. We're moving towards something, radically different, something called clear coding and this relentless intentionality.
And our deep dive today is so rich. We're integrating psychology, sociology, and just pure practical strategy. We're pulling from material on high-level strategies like the controversial 3-3-3 rule.
We definitely have to get into that one.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And the psychological underpinnings of attachment styles, which are just critical for self-awareness, and maybe most importantly, the essential new language. I'm talking about the digital slang and the emoji etiquette that determines if you're building a real connection or just confusing everyone.
So what's the single biggest idea you need to carry with you through this deep dive?
I think it's the shift in power. The language of love in 2026 demands transparency above all else. Your competitive edge is no longer how cool or detached you can seem.
Right. The highest value partner now is the one who is the most self-aware, the most effectively boundaried, and critically, the most present and clear in what they want. Okay, let's unpack that shift in mindset, because the transformation from, the poker face era to this new clarity era it's dramatic. We are officially seeing this cultural fatigue that's led to the rise of clear coding and a genuine embrace of what our sources call Yearner Energy.
That fatigue is the engine driving all of this. Singles are just done. They're exhausted from wasting all this mental energy, trying to decode cryptic messages, figuring out if that vague text was deliberate breadcrumbing.
Right, just leading you on with little bits of attention.
Exactly, just enough to keep you interested. Or if that sudden disappearance was just good old-fashioned ghosting, cutting off all contact. Ambiguity, which used to be seen as mysterious or cool, is now just viewed as disrespectful and inefficient.
And clear coding is the direct answer to that exhaustion. It's all about boldly stating your intentions up front, right out of the gate. And our data suggests that clarity isn't just polite anymore, it's considered the new sexy.
Because it's efficient. It saves time, it saves emotional energy, and it prevents a lot of unnecessary hurt. The old dating game was just exhausting. This new approach is a time saver for everybody.
Absolutely. And there's actual data on this.
Oh yeah, concrete data. One source we looked at noted that a staggering 60% of daters now explicitly want transparent communication. And this has massive implications for how you even frame yourself on a dating profile. For example, if your goal is marriage and commitment, you're now actually encouraged to put that out there early.
Right in the summary.
Right in the summary, because you're screening for people who are aligned with that same destination.
And the opposite is true too, right? If someone is looking for something more casual, say, no-string sexual marathons.
Which is a real example from a profile, by the way.
That clarity is also expected and appreciated because it lets other people who are not looking for that just screen you out immediately.
Precisely. The goal is to screen out mismatched intentions before you even waste 5 minutes on a date. Clear coding is radical transparency, and it signals maturity and respect for your time and theirs.
And that leads right into the embrace of Yearner Energy. I find this phrase so powerful because it's a total rejection of the old norms. It's about rejecting that detached, emotionally unavailable, too cool to care persona.
It is. Yearner Energy is the active choice to show genuine interest, to be emotionally honest, and to actually say what you feel without filtering it. It's the new power move in 2026, because that honesty creates immediate emotional safety. The data shows that 73% of singles reported they feel they truly like someone when they can be their whole selves around them.
So vulnerability is now seen as a sign of high emotional availability, not a weakness.
Exactly. Yearner Energy is leaning into that vulnerability and genuine desire. It means dropping the pretense that you're too busy or too important to care. If you like someone, you show it. If you want to see them again, you say so. This is a huge green flag because it signals they have the capacity to connect deeply, which is something previous generations often tried to hide.
Okay, so once you've established that initial emotional transparency, the vetting process itself has also sped up and deepened. People are now vetting by values, which is sometimes called hot take dating.
Vetting by values is non-negotiable now, and the speed is just remarkable. Shared core values are critical. 37% of daters say they are essential, not just, a nice to have. We're not seeing that slow, gradual reveal of core beliefs over months anymore. Instead, deal breakers are stated early, and they often revolve around these deeply held convictions that people just won't compromise on.
And what's driving those deal breakers? The sources seem to point to current social and political issues.
Correct. The source material is very clear. 41% of people explicitly will not date someone with opposing political views. And this isn't just about who you vote for. It extends to fundamental issues like racial justice, women's rights, environmental responsibility, LGBTQ+ rights. People are looking for partners who are actively aligned in their worldview.
It sounds incredibly intentional. So if you're not just looking for chemistry but for alignment, how does that show up in the little things?
It's reflected in the rise of the ick factor.
Yeah.
This is a purely intentional dating culture, and the ick is the most powerful tool for that immediate, intuitive screening.
The ick factor, that small, often visceral trait that just suddenly makes someone undateable, it's not a major flaw, but it's instantly disqualifying on a gut level.
Precisely. It bypasses rational thought and just hits you. And the data point that surprised me most, which really speaks volumes about character vetting in 2026, is the #1 ick for 54% of daters, and it is being rude to hospitality staff.
That's fascinating. It's not about their car or their job or what they're wearing. It's how they interact with service workers.
It's the ultimate litmus test for empathy and emotional intelligence. Being rude to a waiter, a bartender, a cab driver, it instantly disqualifies someone because it reveals how they treat people they think have less power. That kind of baseline disrespect is a definitive indicator of poor character. The ick functions as a quick, ethical character assessment. You can't fake that.
All right, moving from mindset, the clear coding, and the value vetting to mechanics, let's talk strategy. Because if intention is the mindset, then structure is the defense against the dreaded situationship. And for that, we have the now famous 3-3-3 rule.
The situationship. That ambiguous, non-committal no man's land, it has become the primary source of emotional burnout for modern daters. It's that relationship that goes on for months, even years, without labels or commitment. The 3-3-3 rule was created specifically to put an expiration date on that confusion and to aggressively speed up the decision process.
It sounds incredibly clinical, which maybe is necessary, but is this rule too rigid? Are we sacrificing the possibility of a genuine slow burn chemistry for the sake of efficiency?
That's a crucial question, and it really gets at the tension in modern dating. The answer is that the rule is designed to force accountability, where previous generations just allowed things to drift. It's not meant to replace chemistry, but to ensure that chemistry is actually moving somewhere. Let's break down the checkpoints, and you'll see where the pressure points are.
Okay, let's start with checkpoint 1. After 3 dates, what's the mandate here?
This is purely an attraction and chemistry check, and the rule is firm. No maybes. After 3 dates, you should have enough information to decide if you are physically and, baseline mentally attracted to this person. Are you in or out? If the answer is out, the connection ends there. Politely, clearly. The point is to avoid investing more time, money, and emotional energy when that basic spark just isn't there.
Efficient, for sure. And I imagine the key failure point here is that maybe. People keep dating someone they're lukewarm about because they're afraid of being alone.
Precisely. The maybe is the situationship's breeding ground. This rule demands you respect your own time, and theirs, enough to be decisive early on.
Okay, now checkpoint 2. After 3 weeks, this is where the vetting gets more serious and the emotional honesty is really tested.
Yes, after 3 weeks, you've likely had more interactions, maybe met some friends, navigated some logistics. You're asking a more complex, future-oriented question. Do I see any potential future here? You're not planning a wedding, but you are actively looking for and addressing red flags.
What are some common red flags people tend to ignore at that 3-week mark?
Oh, often the subtle behavioral inconsistencies. Like if someone has inconsistent communication, great texting for 3 days, then radio silence for 2. That's a flag for reliability. Other flags could be financial instability, emotional outbursts over minor things, or a consistent failure to follow through on small promises. The rule says you have to address them or call it off.
And finally, checkpoint 3. After 3 months, this is the moment of truth.
At 3 months, the time for ambiguity is absolutely over. You make the final decision on exclusivity. You either become official, you define the relationship, the DTR, or you part ways. This structured approach prevents the relationship from just languishing in that gray zone, saving emotional capital for everyone. It forces commitment or closure.
This intentional structuring leads perfectly into the psychological strategy of attachment-based dating. This is where self-awareness becomes your true competitive superpower.
Knowing your emotional blueprint is now considered crucial for dating success. Our sources treat this as foundational knowledge. We're talking about attachment theory, which basically says that our behavior in adult dating often mirrors unresolved core wounds from our childhood. If you don't understand your attachment style, your old emotional narratives will absolutely run the show.
Okay, so let's ground this for a minute. How do these insecure styles actually form?
Well, they're essentially adaptations. If a child had a caregiver who was mostly present and responsive, they'd probably develop a secure attachment style. But if the caregiver was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, the child learns they have to protest loudly to get attention. That leads to the anxious, preoccupied style. On the other hand, if the caregiver was consistently unavailable or rejected bids for closeness, the child learns to rely only on themselves. That's the dismissive avoidant style.
Can you walk us through how those two insecure styles show up in early dating, specifically around, say, texting?
Absolutely. So take the anxious, preoccupied dater. They are hyper-aware of every single signal because their blueprint says closeness is conditional.
Yeah.
A late text is instantly read as rejection. They often engage in what we call protest behaviors, overthinking every text, constantly checking their phone, maybe sending a double text, just to provoke a response and calm their panic.
And the counterpoint, the dismissive avoidant. They must react to closeness very differently.
The dismissive avoidant values radical independence above all else. They often see dating and emotional closeness as intrusive or draining. They're masters of deactivating strategies, keeping conversations light and logistical, struggling with emotional disclosures, or needing frequent space. When things get serious, they might suddenly find a small flaw in their partner, that ick, and use it as an excuse to pull away.
So the goal isn't to become perfectly secure overnight, but to take targeted practical steps, what our sources call solutive action.
Exactly. The work has to be targeted. If you identify as anxious, preoccupied, your immediate job is to set boundaries around overgiving and overcontacting. Practice anchoring into your own life before you check your phone. If you're dismissive avoidant, your work is to practice small, consistent emotional disclosures, to sharing one small feeling per interaction, even if it feels terrifying. Something like, I enjoyed today and I'm looking forward to seeing you again. That's huge for an avoidant.
And this brings us back to viewing boundaries not as defensive walls, but as user manuals.
That's the perfect analogy. Boundaries aren't about keeping people out. They are clear, compassionate instructions for how to interact with you and how to be loved well.
Can you give us some good scripts for these user manuals?
They need to be specific and relational. So instead of just saying, I need space, you could try. I'm not a huge fan of texting all day as it distracts me from work, but I do appreciate consistency, so an end-of-day check-in is perfect for me. Or for physical pacing. I like to take things slowly physically to build trust. That's how I make sure I'm fully invested. Naming your needs is the foundation.
Okay, let's talk about revamping the logistics of dating itself. The date format and pacing. We need to get out of that standard coffee or drinks routine, which honestly tells you very little about a person.
The goal of early dating is information gathering, right? Who is this person really? A sit-down dinner is too performative. It only reveals who they are when they're trying to impress you. Our sources suggest moving to activity-based dates that reveal real-world compatibility.
What are some examples of these high-information, activity-based dates?
Think about tasks that require interaction or minor stress. Go shopping for ingredients and cook dinner together. That reveals teamwork and patience. Take a long car journey to a hiking spot. Go to a concert, but navigate the rush hour train beforehand. You learn so much more about someone's nature during these real-life tasks than you ever would across a small cafe table.
And finally, the sensitive and often confusing topic of physical pacing. Given all this pressure for clear coding, is there a universally correct timeline?
Absolutely not. And that has to be clear. The whole idea is moving away from external assumptions and toward internal clarity in communication. Some people need emotional safety first. Others view physical closeness as a pathway to building that emotional connection.
So if there's no single timeline, what's the strategic takeaway?
The key is that mismatched pacing, one partner being faster, the other slower, is not automatically a sign of incompatibility. It just reflects different comfort levels. The problem only comes up when that difference isn't talked about.
So instead of interpreting a slow pace as rejection or a fast pace as shallowness.
Which are classic, anxious and avoidant interpretations, by the way.
Right. What should daters be doing instead?
They should ask, don't assume, be transparent about your feelings, but without expectation. And this is critical. If you do become physically close, you have to check in afterward about how it felt. Ask if anything could feel better or different next time. That ongoing, clear communication around the physical connection matters so much more than the specific timeline itself.
Okay, we have to switch gears now and talk about the crucial element of modern dating, mastering the digital landscape. If you don't speak this language, you're at a massive disadvantage. Let's start with the new lexicon of dating slang.
Yes, these terms are the efficient shorthand for modern courtship problems. By labeling these behaviors, we make them visible and easier to discuss.
First up, the post-ghosting nightmare, zombieing.
Right. This is when someone who previously ghosted you, just vanished, suddenly returns to communication. They might like an old social media post or send a casual "hey" text acting like nothing happened. They are coming back from the dead with zero accountability.
Then there's the emotional holding pattern known as benching.
Benching is one of the most common behaviors that defies clear coding. It's keeping a person as a backup option, literally keeping them on the bench while you actively pursue other people. It's the ultimate example of emotional scarcity, not intentionality.
And the term for pure, raw social attraction, Riz.
Riz is a contraction of charisma. It's that natural social charm or wit used to attract a partner. It's about being effortlessly smooth in conversation. If someone has great riz, they're socially captivating. It's the digital word for game.
And finally, the cloak and dagger operation, the sneaky link.
A sneaky link is simply someone you're seeing or hooking up with secretly. They're intentionally kept outside of your friend circles, often to maintain privacy or to avoid accountability and commitment.
Knowing the slang is one thing, but mastering the actual communication requires sticking to the golden rules of texting and pacing. This is where we learn how to keep momentum without being overwhelming.
Consistency and balance are key. In early dating, the consensus is to aim for 1 to 3 high-quality texts a day. This keeps the connection alive and shows consistent interest, but it doesn't feel suffocating. Quality over quantity, always.
And for safety, both emotional and physical, there's the rule about digital space and privacy in the early stages.
This is a critical rule. Our sources strongly recommend keeping communication on the dating platform until you have met in person. It's safer, obviously, but psychologically it's crucial for preventing what we call a false sense of intimacy.
What is that exactly? A false sense of intimacy?
It's when long, emotional text threads before meeting create this investment and vulnerability that isn't grounded in shared reality. You build a fantasy of the person through text, but you haven't yet verified if you can even sit across from them for an hour. Keeping it on the app encourages people to move to a real date faster.
But we all need digital space sometimes. How do we communicate that need in a clear-coded way without triggering an anxious response?
You are absolutely entitled to your digital space. The key is clear, kind communication, not just silence. A healthy script is direct and gives an endpoint. Hey, I need a few hours to myself to process something. I'll text you later tonight around 8 p.m. And the critical takeaway here, if a partner responds angrily or tries to guilt you for needing space, that is a definitive sign of an unhealthy boundary violation.
Now for the fun and often confusing part, emojis and punctuation. Texting strips away our audible tone, so we have to rely on these little markers. Our sources call this the semiotics of tone.
They're essential paralinguistic markers. They carry meaning beyond the words. Let's start with punctuation, because this is where a lot of people get misunderstood. In short, informal text using a period at the end of a short sentence is often seen as passé and can signal irritation or indifference.
That's a huge cultural shift. If you're grammatically correct, you can be read as passive-aggressive.
Exactly. A short text like "I'm fine" is read as much colder or angrier than "I'm fine" with no punctuation. The period adds this unnecessary finality.
So emojis step in to provide that emogetic clarity. They pinpoint the intended emotion. Let's look at some examples.
The skull emoji is a perfect one. It's no longer morbid, it's the new high-intensity signal for humor. It basically means, I'm dying laughing.
What about the tricky ones that can imply sarcasm?
The upside-down face emoji.
Yeah.
It's frequently interpreted as irony, mild sarcasm, or passive aggression. It often suggests this is fine, but not really. You have to be careful using it because it can drain sincerity from a message. And then we have the whole hierarchy of hearts, which signals escalating levels of affection. Using the classic red heart too early is widely seen as love-aggressive or overly intense. If you want to signal casual interest, you stick to the blue, green, or pink hearts until the relationship is established.
This all sounds like a system of signals that requires some pretty deep attention.
It does. Which brings us to a more advanced technique, emogetic ambiguity. This is where you subtly introduce controlled confusion or conflicting signals to pique someone's interest and increase their emotional investment.
How does that work in practice?
You combine two opposing markers. For instance, if your date sends a tease, responding with lol, ouch, introduces a conflict. The lol is humor, but the ouch plus the upside-down face suggests feigned pain. The other person has to invest energy trying to decode your intent. The psychological principle is simple. The more time they invest in decoding you, the more their own investment and attraction can grow. It's a calculated risk.
Now, before we wrap up, we need to zoom out a bit. While digital slang is global, face-to-face etiquette is not. Let's look at cross-cultural first date norms in 3 big English-speaking countries: the US, Australia, and the UK.
Right. Despite the shared language, the dating scripts vary a lot, especially around money, personal space, and formality.
So starting with the United States, what defines the culture here beyond what we've already covered?
The American style really prioritizes maintaining personal space about an arm's length. Physical contact on early dates is often minimal. Smiling and direct eye contact are non-negotiable. They show engagement. But it's vital to remember those are often just platonic signs of friendliness, not necessarily romantic signals.
Okay, shifting over to Australia, we see a clear preference for equality, especially about payment.
Australian dating is strongly characterized by a partner-based equality paradigm. The assumption is mutual effort from the start. It's common, and often preferred, to split the bill. It's seen as a teamwork dynamic. A man insisting on paying after an offer to split might even be seen negatively as potentially patronizing.
And finally, the United Kingdom, which seems to operate on this subtle blend of tradition and practicality.
Yes, the UK has a far more nuanced social script. The gentleman's rules are often still in play. The man might offer to pay, but if the date offers to split, the elegant response is key. The gentleman suggests they get the next one. This subtly provides a perfect, low-pressure invitation for a second date, advancing the connection without sounding desperate.
It's clear that while digital slang dominates the mechanics of finding love, the emotional foundation is still built on time-tested imagery, the enduring language of love in traditional idioms.
That's such a powerful realization. These traditional idioms are the structural foundation for expressing deep emotion in English. And crucially, they often rely on powerful somatic metaphors, linking feelings to physical sensations.
Like that feeling of anticipation before a big date.
Exactly. We talk about having butterflies in one's stomach, which describes that fluttery, nervous excitement, or that sudden rush of attraction that makes one's heart skip a beat. These terms connect the abstract emotion to a universal physical experience.
And how do we use this language to describe the deepening of affection?
It's often described as a loss of physical balance. You're falling for someone, suggesting a movement you can't easily stop. When it takes over completely, you're head over heels. If you're smitten, it suggests you've been suddenly hit by a heavy blow of love.
And then there are the idioms of commitment and loyalty.
We talk about staying together through thick and thin, which means loyalty no matter what. And of course, the informal way to describe marriage is to tie the knot, which beautifully references the ancient Celtic practice of hand fasting, literally binding a couple's hands together.
What stands out to you in this traditional language, especially compared to the rapid turnover of slang like riz and zombieing?
It's the permanence of the emotional categories.
Right.
These idioms give us enduring language for the type and intensity of love we feel. We still use puppy love for youthful infatuation. We still say love is blind to describe overlooking a partner's flaws. The modern dater has to master both the ancient Semitic metaphors for the feeling and the digital acronyms for the method.
Wow. This has been a monumental deep dive into the 2026 dating landscape. Let's bring it home and synthesize what this new era really requires of us.
The central theme in every source is a rejection of games. We've moved into an era where intentionality and emotional honesty are the ultimate signs of a high-value partner. This means using structure like the 3-3-3 rule and embracing the core psychological work.
And that psychological work is self-awareness. Knowing your attachment style, knowing your default behavior when intimacy is on the line.
Exactly. Knowing if you're anxious, preoccupied, or dismissive avoidant gives you a map to your own triggers. You know the practical steps you need to take. You can then communicate your user manual to a partner, building a connection on security, not on unresolved wounds.
And digitally, we've learned that the text message is a minefield of semiotics. From ridge to zombieing, and understanding how punctuation and even the color of a heart emoji can change everything.
Texting proficiency is no longer optional. It requires mastering pacing, knowing a simple period can signal passive aggression, and understanding that while imagetic ambiguity can be playful, clear coding is always necessary for setting expectations.
So what does this all mean for the listener who's ready to jump into this new era? We need a final, provocative thought.
Well, let's go back to self-awareness powered by technology. Our sources noted that modern AI is now sophisticated enough to act as a hyper-personalized dating coach. It can analyze your texting history, identify your patterns of self-sabotage like always chasing the avoidant, and suggest a tailored 30-day action plan.
That functionality is a direct challenge to the old way of doing things. If an algorithm can spot the flaws we hide from ourselves, what are we going to do about it?
It raises this crucial final question for you. If AI can instantly identify your limiting beliefs, what is the one old habit, maybe it's playing hard to get, or fearing honesty, that you are ready to proactively identify and discard as you embrace this new era? The greatest power in 2026 is recognizing that you control your patterns, not the other way around.
A fantastic provocation to end on. Remember, dating is not a series of tests to pass. It's a process of mutual discovery. Authenticity, boundaries, and clear communication are the ultimate signals of a secure, lasting connection. We hope this deep dive helps you navigate the English flow zone with confidence.